Is it possible that in one of the biggest races on the schedule, that a guy can go from last to first and win the thing? That just happened last night. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Memorial Day weekend, a weekend where we honor and remember those that we lost while serving in our military, putting their lives on the line for us and honoring their sacrifice. And on this particular weekend, we also celebrate one of the biggest days of racing in the entire world. Monaco Grand Prix in the morning, Indianapolis 500 in the afternoon, and at the nighttime, the Coca-Cola 600, the longest race on the schedule, 600 grueling miles, 400 laps at America's Home for Racing at Charlotte, where the drivers will be racing side by side, multiple restarts on a bumpy, abrasive surface where you can spread the car around everywhere. A race of endurance, toughness, and strength. Not just the driver, but the machine that they are driving. And last night we saw a very entertaining race where we saw the winner of the race come from dead last to crossing the start-finish line as a crown jewel winner. Let's get into all that happened in last night's 600-mile marathon. Number 1, Melon Man with the crown jewel. Ross Chastain goes from dead last on the grid to winning the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, beating out William Byron, Chase Briscoe, AJ Allmendinger, and Brad Keselowski for the victory. A very, very impressive drive by Chastain and the Trackhouse Racing Team, the number 1. Why was this impressive? Well, in Saturday's practice session, Chastain had a very fast race car, albeit the conditions were in the daytime, but they had speed from the get-go when they arrived. But in turns 3 and 4, Chastain lost control of the car and backed it into the outside wall, effectively taking him out of any opportunity to qualify the car and left the team wondering, are we going to be able to repair the car, or does NASCAR see something on our car that we have to switch to a backup? Eventually, NASCAR said that there's too much damage to continue the race with this primary car, so you have to go to your backup car. And they spent hours overnight working on the backup car to get it ready for the Coca-Cola 600. And Ross Chastain, of course, was a little bit skeptical, but still had confidence in the team that if they could make the right adjustments, they could maybe fight their way to the front. So he started shotgun in the field in 40th spot and had to work hard for the entire race. He started making a few positions up in the early part of the race. Then we had a couple of cautions where it slowed the pace down. Then he found himself inside the top 15 by the end of stage number 1, so they were making progress and heading in the right direction. Then we get into stage number 2. He starts to climb his way inside the top 10. Kind of hovered around the 8th to 10th place range for the entire stage there, because I think they were waiting for the track to officially cool down, waiting for the higher temps to fall behind the track, and once the lights came on, they would hopefully be a contender that we would be talking about at the very end of the race. And then when the lights came on, the one team and Chastain, they continued to make the car better and better and better. And Chastain admitted that this car was not perfect all night long. They had to work for it, and that's what this race is all about. You're not going to be good at the beginning, but if you continue to continuously work on that car and make it better, especially for when the time is right, the nighttime, and if you have a good race car in the nighttime, then those adjustments that you've worked on will prove dividends. And that one team continued to make it better, and they got themselves inside the top 5 by the end of stage number 3. And then we get into the final stage where Chastain was able to propel himself inside the top 3 when one of the top contenders for a lot of the third stage fell out early on. And then Chastain found himself in the battle with William Byron and Denny Hamlin for the rest of the race. He kind of hovered around 3rd spot. Then we had the green flag pit stops where he was one of the last drivers in the later part of that green flag pit stop sequence to pit for tires. He was able to get those tires on, and he started chasing down the 11 car of Denny Hamlin. And then, with about 30 laps to go, he worked by the 11 car and set his sights on the number 24 of Byron. And for a while, it didn't look like he was going to be able to catch him, but Byron had a close moment on the back straightaway where he had to dodge a out-of-control Tyler Reddick, that slowed the 24's progress down and allowed Chastain to catch up. Then we get into 15 laps to go, and Chastain is within striking distance of that number 24 car. He kept hounding him and hounding him and hounding him, lap after lap after lap. And then with 6 laps to go, going into turn number 1, Chastain makes the move to the inside, gets along the 24 William Byron, and then after heading down the backstretch into turn number 3, coming to 5 to go, Chastain completes the pass and was able to clear the 24 William Byron. But it wasn't over. He had to really hold off that 24 car, who was by far the class of the field yesterday, and make sure that he didn't make a single mistake to give Byron the opportunity to take the lead and the eventual win back from him. Chastain, however, did not look back, and for a guy that's been regarded now as kind of one of the toughest guys to pass on the racetrack, Chastain did not give in whatsoever and was able to hold off and win the Coca-Cola 600. A crown jewel for a boy who grew up on a watermelon farm, growing watermelons, then got into racing, had to take a long time throughout his early racing career in NASCAR to work his way into the top ranks and driving for some of the higher teams. He joined Trackhouse Racing in 2022, was able to take that team to the championship for that year. 2023 was a little bit of a step back, but they were still relatively competitive in a few races. But last year was a massive step back for Trackhouse Racing and Chastain in particular. They weren't running well. They didn't make the playoffs last year. Let's remember that. That one team who made the championship 4 in 2022, 2 years later, doesn't make the playoffs? Who would have saw that coming? But they were able to make some gains at the end of the season, including the win at Kansas Speedway, a 1.5-mile track in the fall, playing spoiler to all the other drivers that were competing in the playoffs at that time. And then we open up this year with the one team, Chastain. They've been pretty good, and Chastain, I feel like, has gotten the most out of that equipment because they've admitted that they really aren't on par with the other teams like Hendrick, Penske, Gibbs, and even 2311 Racing with Tyler Reddick, for that matter, at all this year. But Chastain has gotten the best out of some of these cars, and they've had some pretty decent runs. And last night, that drive was absolutely outstanding. To go from last on the grid, and this is the first time that somebody's won from the last starting position on the grid since Richard Petty in 1971 at Richmond Raceway. Chastain just completed that last night, and it was unbelievable. And getting to see that in person, because I was at the race, that was an amazing drive, and it was also cool to see him smash the watermelon on the start-finish line, and he was just so excited, and he kept calling the race, "We just won the World 600," because that's what the Coke 600 used to be called back in the day. So for him to kind of bring back that retro name to the race, absolutely outstanding. And I just tip my cap to Chastain and Phil Surgeon and the number 1 team for continuing to work on that car all race long to get themselves in the hunt towards the end of the race and pass the dominant car of the night to win. You can't make this stuff up. That was mighty impressive. Now, I want to see more consistency and momentum from this win from them going forward because, as mentioned, Chastain's getting the best out of the cars that they have right now, but a win like this can put a lot of confidence in the team and get them going in the right direction moving forward. So a big congratulations to Ross Chastain, Phil Surgeon, and Trackhouse Racing Team on winning the Coca-Cola World 600. Number 2, dominating performance by Byron, but falls short in the end. William Byron had a dream weekend, almost. It was a really good weekend for Byron starting on Friday when he announced that he signed a 4-year contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports. And let's be real, folks, this is not a surprise. He's one of our top young dogs in the sport right now. He's been a championship throughout the last couple of years, and he's won Daytona 500s back-to-back. And he almost added the 600 to his racing record last night. And Saturday, he won the Xfinity Series race driving the number 17 Hendrick Motorsports car. He did a really good job passing his corporate teammate Justin Allgaier on the last coming to the white flag off of turn 4. That was mighty impressive, and he had to recover from a penalty from that. Last night, Byron's car was on rails, absolutely dominant. He led 283 of 400 laps that we ran and was in front 14 different times. That's how dominant his car was. He won stage 1, he won stage 2, he won stage 3. And by the times when he, as good as his car was out front leading, when the sun went down, the rest of the competition, particularly a Denny Hamlin, a Tyler Reddick, a Ross Chastain, and even Carson Hocevar, would not let Byron get a massive lead on them. They would wait a couple of laps, and then they would start to close back in on him. And at times, when Hamlin was able to pass the 24 Byron, you would think the 24 is going to fall off, but he would be able to reel back in Denny Hamlin and take the lead from him. They were having phenomenal battles. I mean, Byron had to work hard to hold on the lead for that long time, and he was in front for a lot of the race, particularly when the sun went down. I was absolutely impressed by the 24 car. When we get to that final stage, it looked like the race was going to be his. But with about under 30 laps to go, heading down the back stretch, he's behind Tyler Reddick, who not that long ago was competing in the top 5 at a penalty during his green flag pit stop for speeding on the exit, and he was trying to stay in front of the 24 car, hoping that a yellow would come out so Reddick would be back on the lead lap and wouldn't have to restart at the tail end of the field. But he got mighty loose off of turn 2 and smacked the wall and slowed down Byron, who was right behind him. Byron didn't hit him, but slowed his progress down so much that allowed Chastain to catch back up. And eventually, he was able to get within the 24 car, and under 6 laps to go, he made the pass for the lead and eventual win, robbing Byron of the opportunity of having perhaps one of the best weekends of his racing career with the extension and the Xfinity Series win. And this is his home track, by the way. He grew up 10 miles from this place. It would have been so cool to see him win this coveted race on a weekend where he gets that big extension at a track where he grew up at. But it wasn't meant to be, unfortunately, because of the circumstances and the way that the one car of Chastain was catching him and made the pass for the win late there. It was not meant to be for William Byron, but he took it like a veteran driver post-race and credited his team for giving him a very fast car, and it was a very, very, very good car. Very strong. And despite leading all those laps, the challenges that he had to go through, he put up a valiant effort all race long to be competitive against the competition that continuously was making gains on him. It was a mighty impressive drive from the 24 car, and even though they still have the one win at the Daytona 500 this year, they're still one of the top 5 teams, in my opinion, right now in the sport. They have had really good race cars, and it's only a matter of time before they get their second win and they get more bonus points accumulated. But those stage wins yesterday will help him a little bit. He's still a very, very good driver and had a very strong performance. So, despite it not being meant to be for William Byron, it was a great performance from him nonetheless. Number 3, awesome runs for the Dinger and Keselowski. Last night, 2 guys had some unbelievable runs, finishing inside the top 5, with AJ Allmendinger, a road course ace, and a former winner of the Coke 600 in Brad Keselowski. Why don't we start first with AJ Allmendinger? A 4th place performance in a colleague racing car. Now, this is not a shot at colleague racing. They have had their ups and downs this year. But last night, I don't ever recall them falling out of the top 10. That 16 car was very, very, very impressive last night, running within the 4th to 7th place range for a lot of the race. I tip my cap to Matt Colleague, Chris Rice, and everybody in colleague racing for giving Allmendinger a very strong race car. But their season this year has actually been pretty decent. They've had some really good runs with a couple of top 10s, and not on restrictor plates, or super speedway tracks, I should say. Some of the tracks, like, he had a top 10 at Bristol. They had a top 10, I think, at Texas a few weeks ago. If not, they had it at Atlanta early this year. They've had some much better cars this year. But I felt like after the disappointment exiting early at Kansas with an engine failure was going to kill the momentum of the team, they pick right back up, they get back on their feet, and they put together one of the best performances. They scored 16 total stage points last night, because remember, this race is divided into 4 stages. They accumulated, I think, the 4th most points out of anybody in the stages last night, unlike a William Byron or a Denny Hamlin and probably even a Tyler Reddick. Mighty, mighty impressive by AJ Allmendinger in that 16 team. And they're not far behind the cutoff line to possibly point the way in. Now, we do have some road course races coming up, and we all know AJ Allmendinger is a top dog and a threat to win and compete up at the front of road courses because that's his forte. But last night's performance, I mean, I am blown away by that performance by Allmendinger and the team. I mean, they had a good car in practice. They qualified in the top 10, and they stayed in the top 10 all night long and come out of there with a 4th place performance. That's momentum, and that's confidence for this team. So, a great performance by AJ Allmendinger. And how about Brad Keselowski? All year long, we've been talking about if it weren't for bad luck, Brad Keselowski would have none at all. That's how bad the season has been for him. His best finish coming into tonight was 11th at Las Vegas. But last night, I cannot believe it. He finished inside not only the top 10, he finished in the top 5 in 5th place. But, like many drivers and like Ross Chastain, they had to work for this. They didn't qualify well, which has been par for the course for Keselowski this year. They have not figured out how to qualify that race car inside the top 10 or top 15 at the very least. But they were slowly making some progress up to the field. Then they got a penalty during pit stops that sent him to the rear. He, I think, interfered with another vehicle. It was a vehicle interference that caused him to move to the back of the pack. And then by the time we get to stage number 2 after green flag pit stops, he fell off to the point where he fell a lap down, and it looked like it was going to be a tough climb for him. But then during the first caution in the 3rd stage, when Zane Smith wrecked on the back straightaway, Brad Keselowski got the free pass. And I was watching that number 6 maroon-colored car working his way through the pack. They were making that car better. I think, once again, the adjustments that they made, setting the car up right for the nighttime, worked in their favor, and they were making gains every single time. And I saw them get in the top 10 by the beginning of the final stage, and they kept getting a few more spots, and then they were one of the last cars to pit during green flag pit stops, the finals run of green flag stops in the last run of the race, and he propelled himself inside the top 5 and got a 5th place result. Now, they are still, I feel like, in a must-win situation with where they are in points. He only moved up to 32nd in points, but a run like this gives him a ton of confidence and a good shot in the arm to try to gain some momentum going forward. We want to see more of that from Brad Keselowski because this year has not been like the last 2 where he made the playoffs. And last year he returned to victory lane for the first time since 2021. There, again, a must-win situation, but if we can get more runs like this from Brad Keselowski and have no issues that hamper their race, they can change the outcome of these playoffs and get in. But look at the performance of the last 2 races. They've had the speed. They just haven't had the results for it. They had a possible chance and maybe the win, if not a top 5 at Kansas, till he hit the wall in turns 1 and 2. He won the pole for the All-Star race and was looking good early on, then got kicked to the middle of the top 10, but was staying there until he hit the wall, knocking him out of it. He's had nothing but bad luck. But last night, despite a little bit of a setback with the vehicle interference penalty and falling a lap down, they kept working on it and got him back in the game. And he said, if this was a 700-mile race, we might have had something for him. Well, I don't know if the cars could have made it 700 miles, Brad, but I like the optimism, and I was very impressed by their performance to get into the top 5 last night. So a big round of applause for Allmendinger and Keselowski with top 5 runs. Number 4, disappointment for some of our stars. Well, last night was a big night for a lot of guys with winning the race from the back, a dominating performance, and some guys getting some much-needed top 5s. There were a few big names that did not have the results that they were hoping for. We start first with Denny Hamlin, who was probably the second best car when the sun went down behind William Byron and was the one that could really challenge that number 24 car for the lead with the times that he was closing on the back bumper of him, then getting alongside him and eventually taking the lead from him a few times. That 11 car was very, very fast, and it was capable, I think, of maybe beating the 24 car. But when we had that final green flag pit stop in the final stage, Denny Hamlin's team got him a good stop that got him up to 2nd place. But I heard on the radio, and the reporters came on and said, they didn't get the car full of fuel on that final pit stop, which required Denny Hamlin to pit again late in the race with 13 laps to go. That's not missing your fuel stretch to make it to the end by a little bit. That's missing it by a lot. And that's going to be something I feel like in this competition meeting this week, they're going to be asking questions. What went wrong? Why did they not get that car full of the fuel that they needed to make the race to the very end? If they had all the fuel to make it to the end, then I feel like with what happened on the backstretch with Byron slowing down to avoid Reddick, Hamlin could have challenged the 24 for the win, and it may not have been Chastain. But, unfortunately, that was not the case, and Denny Hamlin, instead of the end of the night, possibly either winning the Coke 600 for the second time and not finishing in the top 3, he ends up with a 16th place finish because he had to pit late to get that extra ounce of fuel so he could go and finish the rest of the race. A very tough break for the 2022 winner of the 600. Then we go to Kyle Larson, who was trying to complete the Indianapolis double on the same day and attempt number 2. Unlike last year where he decided to forego the Coke 600 and run the Indy 500 despite them being starting so late because of the weather delay they had over there. He was able to complete that whole race, but had to miss the start of the 600. He flew back eventually, but unfortunately when he got to the track, it started to rain. But NASCAR did give him the waiver saying the effort to come back was impressive. But this year, he was hoping to complete all 1,100 miles, and the Indy 500 had a little bit of a delay, but not as much as last year's, and they were on a little bit of a crunch time, and Larson had to leave at 4:07 that time over there in the clock territory that he's in, so he could get to Charlotte, because this year a new rule states that if you miss a race, you forgo all of your playoff points, especially if you won a few races and won some stages, and Larson was not going to do that. So they eventually got the race going after a little bit of a delay, but then on lap 92, Larson made a wrong downshift into turn number 2, avoiding a stack up that was going on in front of him, and he lost control of the car, and he wrecked it, effectively taking him out of the Indianapolis 500. I was so bummed because, we wanted to see him finish this entire race and then hopefully make it back to the 600 in time, but given the chaos that happened in that race, even if he finished, I don't think he may have been able to make it back to the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the start of the 600. But the early exit allowed him to get out of there as early as possible. He was able to make it to Charlotte in time, and it was helpful because he started on the front row in P2 next to Polson or Chase Briscoe. And from lap number 1, Larson took the lead from Briscoe, and it looked like early on he had that Indy 500 right behind him, and he was focused, and he was ready to go for this race. But it was the first caution of the race where a couple laps after he grazed the wall, he spun coming out of turn number 4, which was a trouble spot for a couple of guys in the race. Larson spun around and had to really work on the car right after that because it was a mess, and they had their work cut out for them. But they eventually got their lap back at the end of stage number 2. Then they were starting to slowly climb their way through the field, and he got himself into the top 15 in the middle of stage number 3. But by the time he got there, a wreck happened right in front of him off of turn number 4, and he got clipped at the last second by the 7 of Justin Haley, and effectively the damage was enough to take Kyle Larson out of the race. It, I think, damaged the right rear wheel, and they decided to call it a night after that. And ultimately, Kyle Larson, he did run both races on the same day, but he didn't complete all 1,100 miles. Instead, he was left with a 37th place finish with a wrecked race car. Now, the other driver that was a part of that wreck was the 2023 winner of the 600, Ryan Blaney. And Ryan Blaney was, again, like many other guys, waiting for the sun to go down and waiting for the lights to come out, because at the beginning of the race, they didn't have the track position and they didn't really have a really good car with them. But when that sun went down and I started to slowly see that number 12 body armor Ford work his way into the top 15, I'm like, he's coming, and they keep making more adjustments. He could be a factor perhaps. But off of turn number 4, he was making a pass outside 3 wide on Chase Briscoe and Daniel Suarez, and I don't know if you could blame anybody in that situation, but it looked like that Suarez was directing up the track, and Chase Briscoe, I feel like, didn't realize that Blaney was out there, and they all pretty much squeezed together, and poor Ryan Blaney got squeezed into the wall by Daniel Suarez after that, knocking him out of the race and leaving him with a 38th place finish and as 5th DNF of the season. I mean, he has had a lot of bad luck this year, but he's so high in the points because of the points that he's accumulated throughout the stages, and he's had some close calls of winning races. But 5 DNFs is very, very puzzling from someone like Ryan Blaney, who we all expect to be competing for wins this year. They haven't won yet. I still feel like that they're going to get a win, but that wreck last night hurt because they were starting to make some gains and working the way to the front of the field. And then Carson Hocevar, perhaps one of the biggest heartbreaks of the race. That 77 car, as the sun was going down, he was climbing his way up through the field as well. He qualified in about the top 25, I believe, but they were making gains with their race car, and at times this year, they've had some really solid cars in the 1.5 mile tracks. I mean, you look at how they qualify and how he ran well at the beginning of that Texas race. I felt like that Carson Hocevar was possibly set for a solid top 10 night, but he got into the top 3 by stage 3, following William Byron and Denny Hamlin, and just learning and seeing which lanes those guys were doing, and thinking, okay, if I could get up there and pass one of these guys, I could take those lessons that I'm learning from what they're doing and apply it to myself, and maybe I could be in front and maybe win my first career Cup Series race, because this race, of course, has seen some pretty big stars of our sport score their first career Cup win at this event, mainly Jeff Gordon, Matt Kenseth, and Bobby Labonte. But Hocevar's strong run came to an abrupt end at the beginning of the final stage. We're going into turn number 1. I don't know if he missed a shift or something, but the motor blew up and ultimately ended his night. And you don't normally see engine failures with these race cars. They're fairly durable engines, but I guess he maybe missed a shift and caused the engine to sputter, and it went kaput and effectively knocked Hocevar out of the race with a 35th place finish. But it's only a matter of time before this guy gets his first career Cup Series win, because these Spire cars he's driving, they're getting better and better and better every single time we see them on the track. I mean, he made the All-Star race, for crying out loud, by winning the All-Star Open, but he's going to get a win eventually. The big question is it going to happen before the playoffs? They need to have races where they don't have issues that affect them. If they can have clean races and they have the speed in their cars, they could maybe pull off an upset and maybe get a win. And then we have Jimmie Johnson, who made his 700th start in NASCAR Cup Series competition yesterday, qualified inside the top 20, and despite falling a lap down during the Larson spin, he got the free pass and was able to get back in the lead lap. He got knocked out in the stage 2 when he got loose up in turn 4 and went around and collected Connor Zilic and Cole Custer, but Jimmy's car was too damaged to continue, and in his 700 start, he finished dead last in Fortis. So definitely sucks to see the NASCAR Hall of Famer and 7-time Cup champion get knocked out early in the race. And people are probably wondering, is this Jimmy's last start? Doesn't sound like it is. It looks like he's going to make a few more limited starts in the Cup Series. But as of yesterday, that was his last scheduled race of the season. So who knows if he wants to make another attempt this year. But it'd be cool if he did. But a really tough exit for Jimmie Johnson, and a really tough ending for a lot of those guys last night in the race, facing that disappointing adversity. At number 5, the racing in the Coca-Cola 600. I feel like that this car has made the racing in the Coke 600 better and better and better, unlike previous years' competitions. Now, of course, the 550 package in 2019's race was pretty solid. 2020, 2021 were kind of boring, but 2022's race with the next-gen car was outstanding. With all the leaders, all the cautions we had, was unbelievable. 2023's race was also very outstanding, considering it was run on a Monday after Sunday got rained out. Last year, the racing, up until the rain came and stopped the race from continuing at lap 247, the racing up until the rain was really, really good. Yesterday's racing, and despite Byron dominating, there were some battles for the lead with him trying to hold off those guys. And of course, yes, the dirty air with the driver in front can mean a difference to the guy behind not being able to have an opportunity to try to pass. But at times when they were able to get alongside the leader, it could run side by side and eventually make the pass. And the battles in the middle of the pack and all over the place were absolutely out of this world. There was some really good racing in last night's Coca-Cola 600. And again, I feel like that this next-gen car has saved the reputation that this race holds and what it used to be, with it being the longest race of the year. And there were so many comers and goers throughout the race. I mean, early on in the race, Jonathan Nemechek was running in the top 5, top 10 with Legacy Motor Club, and his teammate Eric Jones, who had to start at the rear of the field, worked his way in the top 10. They had some really good cars too, but unfortunately, I think Jones' car fell off at the final stage, and Nemechek had some rough pit stops, and when the track officially cooled down, I think his car went away as well. And we saw some guys, again, charge from the back. Of course, Ross Chastain's the primary example, starting dead last and continuously making the car better and better to get inside the top 5 and eventually take the lead and a win away from William Byron. What can you say? This race yesterday, and of course, being there in person, witnessing it, I really, really liked it a lot. And I thought it was a really good Coca-Cola 600. And yesterday's racing on this old, abrasive, bumpy racetrack that we're getting now, the multiple grooves, everything yesterday was just so much fun to watch, and I hope the fans thoroughly enjoyed it. Another really competitive Coke 600. Yesterday was also the first telecast for NASCAR on Prime Video. Of course, the first time that NASCAR Cup races are being streamed on a streaming platform in Amazon Prime. Adam Alexander, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Steve Letarte, the broadcast announcers, Kim Kuhn, Marty Sider, and Daytona 500 winner Trevor Bayne on pit road, and Daniel Trotta, Carl Edwards, NASCAR Hall of Famer, and Corey LaJoie doing the pre- and post-race shows. I haven't seen the full telecast stuff yet, but from what I've heard, it sounds like the first broadcast was a knock it out of the park. It would sound like a lot of people really enjoyed it. It appeared like they were happy with the quality of the cameras, the side-by-side action, and of course, with the streaming platform, no commercial breaks, like full-on commercial breaks where we don't get to see any side-by-side racing while even showing commercials on the side. They've introduced that this year for these 5 Amazon Prime Video races, where they will have it the race on one side while the commercials are being shown on the other side. When they go into a, say, commercial break, they are still showing the race while they're showing the commercials. So I tip my cap to Prime Video for that, and I look forward to watching the race replay on Prime Video relatively soon. But it sounds like the first race went very, very well. And they also had Jeff Gordon come in and call the early part of stage number 3 with Adam and Dale and Steve Letarte. So that was pretty cool. Plus, Steve got to call the race with, briefly, 2 drivers that he used to be crew chief for. That was pretty cool as well. And I'd also like to give a quick shout out to the other 2 big winners of the World of Motorsports yesterday, with Lando Norris and Team McLaren winning the Monaco Grand Prix, their first win in the Monaco Grand Prix for Team McLaren since 2008 when Lewis Hamilton won. And then Alex Palou, the championship leader, who's just been kicking butt this year, won his 5th race of the season out of the 6 we've run, and winning yesterday's 109th running of the Indianapolis 500. It was a very chaotic race, but it was still a really good Indy 500 this year, the first one broadcast on Fox. A little weird this year that Fox did not have the rights to the Coke 600 and had the rights to the Indianapolis 500, but so far it sounds like both performances of those races on their broadcast partners sounds like they went very, very well. So want to say big congratulations to Lando Norris on the Monaco win and Alex Palou on the Indianapolis 500 win. And I thoroughly and myself had a wonderful time at the Coke 600. I was there yesterday with my dad, had a really good time, good barbecue, and got to witness a really, really entertaining race. And I've got some clips that I'll be putting into a vlog later this week, so be on the lookout for that. But I had a great time the entire day. Now we're off to the City of Music, Nashville Superspeedway, where Justin Marks and Trackhouse have operations set out there with their bars in downtown Nashville and a lot of their merchandising branding coming from there. And we're looking forward to a really fun race on this concrete 1.3 mile track, whatever it is. I mean, the size of it, it's kind of like a mile and a half, but not really. But it's a very slick racetrack. It should be a lot of fun seeing them racing under the lights on a Sunday night in the City of Music. So who could come out on top? Could it be Ross Chastain, who won it 2 years ago? Or will Joey Logano be able to hold on and get another win at this race like he did last year? And the big question is, can we have the finish of this race not end with caution after caution after caution and guys running out of fuel a lot? Because last year's end of the race was, a little too much. But I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to see what will happen next weekend. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you all have had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. And again, on this Memorial Day, we honor and remember those that we lost while they served in the line of duty. And we thank those who are currently serving for their service. We are forever indebted. God bless you all. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Subscribe, like, and congratulations to Ross Chastain and Trackhouse Racing on winning the Coca-Cola 600. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!